Good evening, everyone. This is Shweta Raizada. I am a rebranding expert for career documents for senior and C suite clients. My company, by the name of Career Ladder, we specialize in condensing your years of expertise into very, very crisp executive resumes, your executive biographies, LinkedIn profiles, your value propositions, and bring out the essence of your knowledge, your professional growth out in a very, very leadership oriented manner. I am a certified professional resume writer from the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches USA. I have been into this for the last 9 years. My total experience goes beyond 15 years, but for the last 9 years, my niche has largely been into crafting these robust career documents for senior and C suite clients.
Thank you so much and welcome to Dr. HR Shweta. What do you feel and what do recruiters expect to see in an executive resume?
Recruiters all across the globe largely have very less attention spans. They are going through many resumes or countless resumes, if I may say so, on a daily basis or an hourly basis. So we are essentially catering to only 6 to 7 seconds of their attention span. So what they look for is the value you bring to the table. They are not looking for anything just in reverse chronology put up, but they are looking for numbers. They are looking for what your focus is. They're looking for what your core is, what your expertise is. So there are certain strategies for us, somebody like me who is well versed with what is happening in each industry. There are certain strategies that those are employed to bring out this crux which the recruiter is looking for. And if that particular recruiter wants to read after those 7 seconds, it's game one for us. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question, Shweta. Out of curiosity, I'm just asking this. Typically, most of the HR leaders in these days, they have ATS, this, application tracking system. When you finalize those executive resume, do you also need to keep in mind few keywords?
Yes, we always do that, because for someone like me to come into play for a CHRO, for example, to craft a resume, now that gentleman, that person is the best person to talk about his professional growth. But why is someone like me needed is when we have to sieve through a beautiful story about where the person is coming from, where the person is currently, and where and what his or her target role is. Now, it is that target role from which we have to pick up the keywords and make the new resume replete with it. Now, ATS tracking system is definitely a robust system, but when we talk about senior and C-suite clients, we are largely talking about you leveraging um, your network to get where you want to. At your level, ATS friendly resumes is a good thing, but it's not a must thing. But yes, that being said, we do take all precautions to make it an ATS friendly resume completely.
How easy or difficult the life of a professional resume writer in today's world?
I don't know about others. I can definitely talk about myself. This work is my passion, and I completely enjoy going through, the professional journeys of our C-suite clients. So because I enjoy going through it, and I I know the nuggets which have to be picked up from your, say for example, your LinkedIn profile or your current resume, or the process that we follow. The process that we follow is such a robust process that when I have so much of information and achievements of a particular C-suite client in front of me, it gets me geared up to deliver the most there, because there is so much that can be done. And just because it's not projected properly on paper for that person is what my guiding force, that I sort of go after and deliver the best we can. Yeah.
Let's get a little more technical now. And So my question around that is, what are some of the popular formats of executive resume, and do they vary once we move from country to country?
Okay, I'll answer the latter part of your question first. Yes, they can vary. What we are doing over here in India currently is what we are following the US and the Canadian standards completely. So these kind of resumes that I work upon, the formats that I and my team work upon, we these can largely be used across countries. I would say easily about 70 to 80% of countries all across the globe. Some countries or some Indians sitting in another country, they don't want to talk about themselves in a very, open manner, and they want to keep it subdued, sublime. These are the only differences in terms of the format or the content. But largely, yes, the formats can be used all across, like I said. And coming back to the first part of your question, the formats, how I look at each resume is I do not look at it from the format perspective. Frankly, there are no do's and don'ts or rights and wrongs. Of course, there are certain strategies, like I said earlier, but besides that, it is it's a call that someone like me should take when you are sitting with a particular draft. I may want to do something different for a CHRO in a particular format, while including the same thing, same element in a CFO format will make no sense, right? So it's a call that the person handling the whole show should take it there and then. That being said, I do not stick to any format. I go ahead with the flow of the expertise of the client.
Typically, if you ask me as an HR practitioner, at times I also struggle to condense my years of experience, let's say 2 decades of experience. Typically, when somebody advises that it has to be captured in 2 pages maximum, and you are so confused, you don't know what to include and what not, right?
Yeah.
In that entire scheme of thing, are there any magical formula that you would really advise to potential candidates? Any best practices around that?
Yes, the formula, the golden rule, the golden standard for an executive, a very robust executive resume is 2 pages. This I am, of course, talking about keeping in mind the senior and C-suite clients. 2 pages is the golden standard. You cannot go beyond this, and you definitely can't do a one-pager, because 2 pages in itself is only a challenge. And plus, one pager is not a resume. It is ideally, your executive profile or an executive biography, where you talk about yourself in a more synopsized manner. So for the resume, uh, yes, there is also a magic trick which every senior or C-suite client should employ, which is talking about your value in the bygone decade. What happened? What your journey was like? What numbers can we throw in? If you cannot throw in numbers, then what were the strategies that you formulated? And what happened with those strategies? What benefits did the company reap out of those? These are the kind of robust information that we need to bring to the fore. It has to be completely crisp and very well articulated, and very leadership oriented. So that is the golden rule and the magic trick, I would say. There is a lot of difference between a CV and a resume. I understand across geographies we do interchangeably use these words, but it's incorrect. A CV can run into 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, and it talks about all your annex. It can have many annexures too, like your project. CV is something which is an academically oriented document. However, resume is something which is a professionally oriented document. So this is what we cater to largely, and CVs are something that are completely different.
People say resume is very important. Hence, take utmost care while preparing your document. But how important are covering letter? And would you recommend that a covering letter is must?
See, Anil, when let's take a scenario that when you, for example, are going to send out a resume to somebody, what are you going to say about yourself? Till the time the reader reaches your resume, how will they know what to expect? There has to be something which is proposing your value to them. Value proposition letters where you can interchangeably also call it a cover letter, where we are proposing your value to the reader for him or her to to know what to expect, what would Anil be about, what his leverage is going to be like. So in that pursuit, a cover letter or a value proposition letter is not essentially to go out as a separate attachment. If you, in the body of the email, if you want to talk about yourself in a very, very crisp manner, then yes, we definitely need the value proposition letter. And when a company is hiring, they already have a problem at hand. How you as a professional propose to solve that problem at hand is what is should be gauged ideally through the value proposition that you're putting forth. So, in other words, cover letter is definitely a must. So, in my experience, more often than not, especially clients at a C level, they shy away from really bringing their value to the fore. While they are very robust in their approach, in the kind of work they do as a professional, their achievements, etc., are very, very sturdy. But when it comes to putting it out for the reader, they shy away, or they feel, if I may say so, even underconfident. So many times, my clients have come back and said that when we have followed your process of how you extract the information from us, and when we are jotting all of that down, it adds so much of confidence already into me that, oh my God, there is so much I've done, but I've not been able to project it in a manner that it's impactful. So if I have to gauge the situation from that, already in your mind, when you are following my process of getting me what I need from you, you are 80% more confident of yourself. And in addition, when we project it in the manner we do, like giving the focus really to the entire document, and when it's received by them, there are new horizons in their mind which have already opened up. So getting it from an expert definitely adds value in my personal experience.
Thank you, Sweta, for sharing honestly the trade secrets of writing an effective resume. I appreciate that. While
Yes.
writing the executive resume, what are the absolute do's and don'ts that one need to keep in the back of their mind?
The first thing, of course, is a lot of people write objectives. So that's a big no. You cannot talk about an objective on a resume. You rather bring about what your focus is. Your resume is your marketing document. So you cannot, bring forth something which is going to place you lower than where you are, right? Like if you are doing a presentation, you are there to solve a problem and you propose your value. So that is how you should, instead of the title, that the next question, of course, would be, if not the objective, then what? Then you should put a title about you, which projects clearly in a very descriptive manner who you are, what you bring to the table, what are your top 5 core skills. This way, what are you doing? You are proposing your value to the reader within 3 seconds. They know what this gentleman would bring to the table. One is that no objectives. Second is, of course, no redundant content, result driven, proven skills. No, we are not getting into something which is age old. Anything which has been used over years is redundant. We need to be creative. We need to really talk about um, those pointers, those nuggets that have got a client where he or she is. Some clients like to put career highlights in a different section. I am totally against them, because they are front loading your resume, right? It's front loading your resume. It is reducing my space. I cannot go to beyond 2 pages. And I don't even have, as a reader, a proper frame of those highlights. Like what happened, which role do they belong to, which year are they from? This number belongs to year 2010 or year 2020. So, career highlights should not be front loading your resume. It should go back to the proper frame, proper role do they belong to, that they belong to. And then, well, there are many more. I can give you one more. which is so once you have given your title, your summary, your core skills, reader quickly wants to know what company you're working with, what is your designation, what are the numbers we're dealing at, currently. So you cannot start your current role from the second page. Now, yeah. So again, you have to balance out the whole resume, the whole document in terms of what leverage which role is bringing. So you have to balance out accordingly. So these are off my head a couple of big no's, totally complete don'ts for the resume.
Sure.
And do's, of course, are, like I said, title should definitely be there. There should also be a title description, that why are you after a title. For example, if you want to be a CFO and if you're a finance director in a company currently, why do you want to be a CFO? What is it that you've done that you want to be a CFO? So that is where the title description comes into play after the title. So that's a big advantage for the resume. Then we go on, of course, talking about the core skills, which should be definitely included. And they should not be generic, because at this level, we are not looking for anything generic. We only want very specifics and very specific informations. And of course, your executive summary has to be very robust, free of redundancy.
Sure.
These are a couple of do's that one should really keep in mind. And then the biggest thing is the reverse chronology that a resume should follow, right? If it's a 25 years old experience, then your most current experience should be talked about first. And then you go down in the reverse chronology manner. Another very important point is education. Some clients, because they are from premier institutes, they like to put their education before their experience. That's a big no again, because at the level that you've reached, your education is secondary to your experience now. So your experience, your education should go hand in hand, but your experience precedes.
As an expert, you come across plenty of profiles. Do you see there is any specific demand for any specific skill set which has gained momentum during this time?
If I look back on the last year bygone, so I would really like to bring it to the fore that the amount of finance and technology related resumes we have done is huge. What did you do in your capacity at a senior level for COVID? So those are the kind of things which I would say have taken a slight precedence, but they are not the game changers.
Thank you, Shweta, for your candid chat, for sharing the insider secrets with us. And I'm sure all my audience, they have learned immensely through this conversation.
Thank you, Anil. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me over. It's been a wonderful experience chatting with you, someone like you, with your caliber, and you chose to have a chat with me. Pleasure's all mine, believe you me. Thank you very much, Anil.